Hi, I'm Rebekah Ricks. I'm here at the Homeschool Connection, and we're located in Winter Haven, Florida. And this is The Brew, and The Brew is a mixture of events, people, or things that come together to form a more potent whole, and we want to make your whole a whole lot better. So I'm here at a little bit later time than normal, but you know what? It's never too late to have a cup of coffee. So this is my pick-me-up in the afternoon. And I kind of need it. Today it's been one of those crazy days. So, but today we're going to be talking about spelling. All right, so spelling is kind of near and dear to my heart in the fact that I always struggle with spelling. I still struggle with spelling. Spelling is not my favorite thing in the whole world. And I remember having to write my spelling words growing up. I remember my parents drilling me on my spelling words. I remember standing there and sweating, being so nervous about taking a spelling test, and being so nervous when they would ask me, and I couldn't remember how the letters went. And so secret circle of trust, don't tell anybody, but I am dyslexic. So for spelling for me was very, very hard. I have a hard time remembering what order the letters go in. So sometimes if you have a child that struggles with spelling, you know, it's very closely related to your reading too. A lot of times that goes hand in hand. You're reading, you're struggling. So let's just make sure, let me preface this by saying every child is different. So what's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. There isn't one single solution that's gonna help every student that struggles, okay? So I can give you some advice on that, but just remember, we're all different, and so not everything is gonna work. Most of these tips I'm gonna give will work for a child with dyslexia or something that struggles with that. Now, along that same thing, I do have, like, I've never been clinically diagnosed with dyslexia, but I flip and have a lot of things that are like that, but I do not have the number side of it, which is dysgraphia. I really don't deal with that as much, but I do deal with it a lot of times with spelling. Yesterday, I was spelling something on Facebook, and I had asked my husband how to spell it, and he always spells it out slow for me, and I find that super irritating. Just tell me how to spell it. I don't need you to help me spell it out, or different things with that, but that's kind of the same thing. But first of all, let's talk about why spelling is so important. You know, we all have spell check these days, which saves my life. Praise Jesus, we have spell check. But you know, remember, spelling as you get older is kind of like phonics in reverse. If you think about that it's phonics in reverse, then you can get it. You know, reading, most of the time we talk about reading as being an auditory skill, but reading or is a visual skill. I'm sorry. Well, a lot of times we think of reading as visual, but reading is not a visual skill. It's an auditory skill. In order to read, a child has to be able to hear the sounds, understand that picture goes with a sound. So kind of when we're teaching spelling, it is phonics in reverse. It's the study of phonics and in the study of words and patterns, and it has a lot of benefit to readers. So sometimes if you're struggling in reading, taking some special time with spelling will help your reading. And a lot of times you have to hear it, okay? You have to be able to hear the sounds, hear the syllables, hear the phonics to be able to be good at it. Not just good at it, but to understand it. So sometimes if we understand that it is an auditory skill, it is something that you have to hear the sounds. So for example, the word is house, ow. What says ow? Well, OU says ow. But also, OW says ow, like ow and owl. So if you can't hear the ow in owl or ow in house, it's a slight difference. But to some people, they sound almost exactly the same. I hate ers. In nurse. In verse. In bird. They all sound the same, but are spelled different. So things like that, if you're having a hard time, you've got to remember that spelling is just phonics in reverse. So when they're younger, we usually focus on phonics and then kind of drop it away maybe in third grade when we start teaching them spelling and different things. But you have to, a lot of students, not all, but a lot of students have to do that. Now, there are some things you know, we've all read words that we can't spell probably. You know, sometimes when it's challenging, it's really good to spend a little bit more time on it. But, you know, some people are naturally gifted in spelling. That's their thing. There are these kids who can go to spelling bees, and more power to them. It's much easier for them. It's easier for them. But it is naturally more difficult than reading for most people. You know, to read it, to put the words together and do it the other way, reverse. So we're reverse spelling. So remember, when you're working with someone who's struggling with spelling, that really struggling spellers usually need something that is hands-on. A lot of times we cannot just rely on worksheets and workbooks to help them learn. We've got to use some very different things, and to manipulate, organize, compare, study, see patterns. Sometimes if you can teach patterns in words, it's the same thing. So remember, try to think of something that can be hands-on. Now, I hate to be the person that says Pinterest, but Pinterest is very good for finding that. One of my favorite things is the alphabet ones that have the magnets on the back. I don't know what those, there's probably a really fancy name for them. But the letters, sometimes you get them at the dollar store. They're just little plastic letters and they have magnets on the back. Your hands on finding that letter, putting it up to spell is one of my favorite things. Anything that's hands-on, you know, we see put the sand in the bottom and draw it in the sand, different things. Now remember, those things a lot of times people think are for younger kids, but those work for older kids. And I'm talking middle school and high school. Those things are still viable. They're really helpful. So don't stop your hands-on when they get out of second or third grade. Sometimes they're going to need to continue that hands-on going on. Remember that a lot of times spelling needs to be presented in a really organized way. All right, so sometimes, this is my thing, we assume kids know how to write a paragraph. Like, we don't take the time to teach them how to write a paragraph. Same thing, and we need to teach them how to spell. You know, instead of just list upon list upon list upon list of words, remember that you should have words that are connected in some way. And so struggling spellers really need to see that there are words that have something in common. So doing words by theme is not a bad idea for some kids. It keeps them engaged in spelling. But a lot of times maybe having all these words that have OW in it is a way to teach it. Or a whole bunch of words that have OU or OO, as long as they have words that go with a phonics rule. And I'm talking like a block of words, 5 or 6 words. So there's nothing wrong with you making your own spelling lesson. What? Not using a curriculum? There's nothing wrong with you picking your own. If you're a teacher, picking your own words that student might need. A parent, maybe if you're working on something extra, picking words that go with a certain rule, okay, to go along with it. Now, a lot of times there are spelling curriculums that have that go with a rule, but maybe even enforcing the rule more. A big spelling rule, I before E, except after C, or when it sounded like A, as a neighbor or away. A lot of times we have certain curriculums. I'm a big Rebekah fan. Rebekah is big on having a lesson every time that has to go with that. Remember, another thing that strugglers need is for you to really break down words. And this really helps me. Break down words and take it so that they're struggling, they can have it. So let's say dyslexia. Dis. What makes dis? Dis. D-I-S. Lex. How do I spell Lex? L-E-X. Lex. E. Okay, well that can be an I or an E. So it's an I. Remember, dyslexia has an I in it. And can be an U or an A. So there we are, we're teaching a rule. E and A at the end of a word usually is the letter A. Okay, those are just a couple, that's just a sample of a word. Breaking those words down, and I'm talking about don't just break them down one time, so you have a list for a week. Break that list down every week into those sounds. We call those phonographs, when we can break the words down into very basic sounds. So we have to understand that they need those basic sounds to build words. And it's root words. So a lot of times as they get older, spelling curriculums that teach roots or Latin roots or roots that kind of relates to the meaning and vocabularies are also good. But those can help a struggling speller as you get older if you're working on different things that relate. It certainly doesn't hurt to go back levels and start at a basic level and slowly work yourself up. Because we need the phonics. So many times we push word memory, but that's not it. And a lot of kids can learn to read that way, but some cannot. So it's the same thing with spelling. Word memory. We're all not great memorizers. And memorizing 20 words every week or how to spell 20 words is not going to work for everyone. So make sure you break those words down into patterns. Break them down into the phonographs and the digraphs that they are. And especially at first, really, really, really teach those words. And that's an inexpensive way to help with a struggling speller. Sit down with them on each of their spelling words, break it down. Remember, they need instruction on their level of learning. Is your struggler a fourth grader? Well, then he probably is we might need to bump down into a younger level. So you don't need to go out and buy a fourth grade spelling book. If they're struggling at a fourth grade level, we need to bump down sometimes. Don't always base their spelling books off a grade level. So I'm big on not putting them into a grade level, a cookie cutter. Fifth grade level, for some kids, they can breeze through it. It's easy peasy, but for someone else, it's different. And remember, if you have a struggling speller, that's really, really, really going to affect their writing. Okay, so reading, writing, spelling all kind of go hand to hand, okay? They're going to go together. If you're struggling in spelling, chances are you might be a little bit of a slower reader, and as a result, writing is hard, okay? Because I know that I'm a great reader. As growing up, I loved to read, but I was a horrible speller. As a result, writing was hard for me because I knew I'm going to have a million words spelled wrong, and I kind of dreaded writing because of the spelling aspect of it. During independent writing time, for me, writing, because I was bad at spelling, was my worst nightmare. I dreaded it. But sometimes it's really good. Now, different people do this in different ways, but you can have a notebook that you write down certain words, read the words off the wall, words that you have a hard time misspelling, things like that. You can find different ones that you do, like a word wall or something like that. But my big thing is, if you have a struggling speller, depending on the grade level, if we're talking first or third, we really need to go back into our phonics. Syllable charts, things like that. Homophones, finding how words that sound the same that are spelled different, focus on those. If you're talking younger, we have vowel teams that go together, like in team, T-E-A-M. Charts that are blends and digraphs, huge, change your life, okay? I really, really think the reason I was great at reading and not so necessarily at writing was because I did Rebekah phonics charts. Phonics, repetition is the key to learning that phonics over and over and over again. If you're working with someone that's younger, what's the beginning sound? What's the end sound? What's the vowel in the middle? Lots of different things you can do with that. So if you're working, my biggest thing is really a child that's really struggling. We're talking about that 4th, 5th, 6th grade, maybe up into 7th and 8th grade. We really need to develop into that. So if they don't come from a strong phonics basis, we need to go back and refix our phonics, relearn the phonics, figure out where those bases are that we need. If they're already through the phonics and we're over here to the end, work more on breaking those words down. Make every word broken down. Miscellaneous. Miss, how do I spell that? Lay, how do I spell that? Every time they get a spelling list. All right, and I am a big on mastery. All right, I would rather be able to do a few words really well than do it, than try to squeeze in a whole bunch. So I feel like at home, you really need to, if you're going to a typical school, you will have that list with 20 words every week. And it is a pain to take the time to break those words down. Break the words down, remember how the rules are with them. That's the only way to do it. Writing is not always great, because if you write them wrong, then you learn that word wrong. And so many times the copying from here to here, if they can't break them down. So take the time at home for each list to break your words down. Take the time to learn those digraphs and teach them patterns in words, and help them remember this sound is like this word. This is spelled like this word. And not focus so much on sight words. Now there are certain words that are sight words, but not focus so much on their younger on sight words. Focus on them actual learning to read the words based on phonics rules. So hopefully, I guess that's my big thing on spelling. A typical student can learn them from writing, but if you're really struggling, they're going to need more than writing. It's going to have to be an auditory thing. Hear the words, hear how it's broken down. Is kind of what I'm saying. So that's my little bit of words of wisdom on how to teach spelling. And if you are looking for more fun ways to do spelling, there are tons of resources on Pinterest, different things to do. Remember, a child is never too old to do some of these hands-on things. Some of my best things that have happened is doing things that seem too young for a younger student with an older student. No child's the same. So find out something that your child likes and go with that. Use that every week. Mix it up. Do different things with them. Find out the one that they really like. And take the time to work on spelling, just like we would work on multiplication tables. We focus on that, knowing we have to work on our math or drill our math, and forget to work on, oh yeah, I got to take the time to work on these spelling words, and not just read them out loud, how to work on them slowly, different things. So I really recommend getting the little tiles, even for middle schoolers or high schoolers, to work to review those spelling words. It makes it a little more visual. All right, so hopefully you'll come and see us on Friday morning with What's Your Brew, an extra shot of espresso, which is our devotional. And don't forget, have a cup of coffee. Remember, you're not alone. You're not the only one struggling with something like that, and we are here to help. Hope you all have a great evening, and get yourself a cup of coffee.